King Obina of the Kingdom of Umuaka was known throughout the land for his strength and wisdom. Tall and commanding, with skin as dark as the night sky, he was revered by his people. He ruled with pride, and his decisions were often final, never questioned. His Queen Adaobi was also beloved by the people. Though not as physically imposing as her husband, she was a pillar of strength in her own right. At 35 years old, Queen Adaobi had dark skin, long braids, and a grace that made her the perfect partner to the king. However, despite their strength and unity, a problem began to brew in the royal court. Nkem, a beautiful maid of the palace, had caught the eye of the king. She was a young woman, just 22, and had long been admired for her beauty. Nkem, with her slender frame and radiant dark skin, began to play her cards carefully. She would serve the king in the palace, and with each passing day, her beauty seemed to win him over more and more. The queen noticed the shift in the king's attention and felt the growing distance between them. But Queen Adaobi was not one to show weakness. She remained loyal to her duty, continuing to support her husband in every way. Her wisdom and compassion earned her the respect of the kingdom, but her heart ached with the growing presence of Nkem in the royal court. One day, the king decided that Nkem would be honored with a special place in his palace. He praised her beauty openly and began to show her more attention, much to the queen's dismay. Queen Adaobi knew that she had to act quickly before the bond she had shared with the king began to unravel. Determined to keep her place in her husband's heart, Queen Adaobi sought counsel from Papa Uche, the wise elder of the village. Papa Uche, a man in his mid-50s, was known for his quiet strength and deep understanding of the world. "You must be patient, my queen," he advised. "Let the king see the true strength of your character. Beauty fades, but wisdom and loyalty never do." Queen Adaobi, though hurt, took his words to heart. She began to focus more on her duties, helping the villagers and improving the lives of the people in her kingdom. Her actions spoke louder than words, and soon the people began to praise her not just for her beauty, but for her heart and commitment to the kingdom. Meanwhile, Nkem grew bolder in her attempts to win the king's favor. She began to spend more time with him, telling him stories and laughing at his jokes. The king, caught up in the charm of her beauty and youth, started to forget the things that had made him fall in love with Adaobi in the first place. One evening, the king called for Nkem to join him in the royal chamber. Queen Adaobi, noticing the empty room, decided to take a walk through the palace gardens. There, she overheard the king and Nkem speaking in hushed voices, their words sweet and flirtatious. The queen's heart broke in that moment, but she did not confront them. Instead, she returned to her chambers and wept silently. The next day, Queen Adaobi made a bold decision. She called for a meeting with the king. When he arrived, she spoke calmly but firmly. "Obina," she began, "I have seen the way you look at Nkem. I know what is happening, and I have accepted it." The king, surprised by her words, tried to reassure her. "Adaobi, I..." But the queen raised her hand, silencing him. "No, Obina. I do not want to be the one who stands in the way of your happiness. If you have chosen her over me, then so be it. But know that I will remain true to my duty as queen, even if that means stepping aside." For the first time, the king saw the depth of his queen's love for him and the kingdom. He realized that he had taken her for granted. Adaobi was not just a wife, she was a partner in ruling the kingdom, a woman of strength and wisdom who had always put the needs of the people before her own. King Obina, filled with regret, realized that he had made a terrible mistake. He went to Nkem and told her that he could no longer be with her. He returned to Queen Adaobi, begging for her forgiveness. Queen Adaobi, though hurt, forgave him, for she knew that a king who learned humility and recognized the worth of his queen was a king who could lead the kingdom to greatness. Together, they rebuilt their relationship, working hand in hand for the good of Umuaka. Years passed, and the kingdom of Umuaka flourished under the wise leadership of King Obina and Queen Adaobi. Their reign was peaceful, with crops growing in abundance, and the people living in harmony. The villagers often spoke of how the king and queen worked together as a true team, each complementing the other's strengths. The king, once blinded by pride and admiration, had learned to value humility. He no longer sought constant praise but focused on doing what was best for the kingdom. The queen, in turn, remained a pillar of strength, always seeking the welfare of the people before her own desires. One day, as the sun set over the kingdom, a messenger arrived at the palace. He was breathless, carrying news from a neighboring village. "Your Majesty," he panted, "the crops in the village of Yuzo are failing. The people are starving. They need your help." Without hesitation, Queen Adaobi sprang into action. "We must send aid at once," she said to the king. "The villagers need food and support." The king nodded, but he could see the worry in her eyes. "I will send guards to ensure the safety of the supplies," he said. "No," the queen replied firmly. "I will go myself. The people need to see their queen, and I need to speak to them face to face." The king was hesitant but knew better than to argue. "Then we go together," he said. "The people must see that we are united in their time of need." Together, they traveled to the village of Yuzo. When they arrived, the sight was heartbreaking. Crops were withered, and many of the villagers looked weak and weary. The king and queen set to work immediately, organizing food deliveries and providing shelter for the families who had lost their homes. As the queen worked alongside the villagers, she spoke to them with compassion and encouragement. "We will not abandon you," she promised. "Together, we will rebuild." The king, watching from a distance, felt a deep sense of pride for the queen. He realized that it was not Nkem's beauty or charm that made the kingdom thrive, but the queen's unwavering commitment to the people. After several days of hard work, the crops in Yuzo began to show signs of recovery. The villagers rejoiced, and the king and queen were celebrated for their leadership. "Together, we are strong," the queen said during the feast that followed. That night, as they sat in the village hall, the king turned to the queen. "Adaobi," he said softly, "I have learned so much from you. You have shown me what true leadership means. Thank you for never giving up on me, even when I was lost in my own pride." Queen Adaobi smiled, her eyes filled with warmth. "My king," she replied, "I never doubted you. I only waited for you to see the truth of what we could accomplish together." In that moment, the king understood fully. It wasn't about being the strongest or the most admired, it was about being a partner, a teammate, and a leader who cared deeply for the people. From that day on, the king never took the queen for granted again. Their bond grew even stronger, and together they led Umuaka into a new era of peace and prosperity. They worked side by side, making decisions for the good of all, and their love for each other and their people became legendary. The story of King Obinna and Queen Adaobi became a cherished tale, told around firesides for generations to come. It was a story of humility, love, and redemption, a reminder that true greatness comes from selflessness and the willingness to learn from one's mistakes. As the years went by, the kingdom of Umuaka continued to flourish. The people lived in peace, and the once divided royal court was now united under the wise rule of a king and queen who had learned the true meaning of leadership. And though Nkem had once played a part in the royal drama, she, too, found happiness. She continued her service to the palace, but now she was respected and loved by all. She and the queen became good friends, with Nkem often helping the queen in her duties and singing her beautiful songs to lift everyone's spirits. The king and queen often held festivals to celebrate their people, and the kingdom of Umuaka became a symbol of unity, compassion, and strength. They never forgot the lessons learned during their trials, and they taught their children and grandchildren the importance of humility, love, and the value of hard work. And so, the story of when the king chose a maid over his queen and learned the true meaning of leadership passed down through the generations, reminding everyone that even kings and queens are only as great as the people they serve.